We are live from Salina. I am just absolute I always am very behind the scenes with people. We do that on my radio show. We do that on our Sunday radio show that me and Israel do.
Yeah.
It took a heck of a lot of people to put this show together tonight, from Skype guests to me calling guest bookers to our people on Skype being patient. So I'm amazed that the show is even live from Salina tonight. I am Jiggy Jag, a.k.a. James Lowe. I've got Israel, my man, with us, Sean Gates.
How you guys doing?
And on Skype tonight, we have Dan Perkins, best-selling author, also writes for thehill.com, and fairly recently, Laura Ingram's blog as well.
Yes.
We also have with us Dave Workman, and I'm going to let Dave do his own introduction because I don't want to miss anything. Dave, go ahead and jump in there and give us a brief introduction, my friend.
Well, I'm the senior editor of the Gun Mag, which is a publication of the Second Amendment Foundation that replaced Gun Week a few years ago. I'm the communications director for the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms. I write for several different other publications about firearms, and I do a column every day on the Conservative Firing Line and Liberty Park Press. There's a brand new online publication.
And then we've got my good, close, personal, longtime friend, Mr. Ross Long, the rabble-rousing ringleader from Colorado, rosslong.info for all of his videos, and also for all of me and Ross's old videos from here in Salina, Kansas. They're up there on rosslong.info. And tonight we're going to be talking about the Second Amendment, guns, everybody's favorite. I know that Israel has some interesting opinions on
Me
guns.
with interesting opinions. I don't know why you would ever think that.
And I know Ross does too, and Dan has wrote several columns on the Second Amendment as well. But I want to start with Dave. There's been a lot of things going on in the world of Second Amendment as far as folks, wanting guns taken away, or everybody and their brother gets a gun. There's no in the middle. Why is that, Dave?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, firearms have always been, at least in my lifetime, a lightning rod subject. As you all know, there's a pretty strong movement today of people who want to take all kinds of firearms away from people.
Yep.
One day they might want to take away handguns. One day they might want to take away those dirty old assault weapons, which are really semi-automatic rifles. Tomorrow they might want to take all of them away. We just have to try to counter that with common sense and statistics too. And it doesn't help at all that one of the two presidential candidates has made gun control a cornerstone of her campaign.
Now, Dan,
Yes, sir.
sir, who walked in behind me? We talk about this each and every week on our third hour on the radio program, and that we do for iHeartRadio. I know that you and our colleague Don Mazzella talk about it on your guys' program each and every Tuesday night, two guys from Verona over on W4CY.
Right.
What do you make of guns, and to follow there up on Dave's point that one of the presidential candidates has made it a central focus?
Well, I would agree with him that clearly Hillary has made it a focus. Whether it's a central focus, that may be the particular slant that our friend has. However, if you understand what the Democrats have been saying, they want to get rid of the guns. Well, and I agree with your other guest that statistics are important. 15 of the largest population cities in the United States have the most strict gun control. In fact, in many of those 15 cities, many weapons are illegal. You can't get a license for them. But there's another strange thing that's happening, is that those 15 cities also have the highest murder rates with illegal guns. So if you're going to say, well, let's make it illegal, okay, that means that the law-abiding citizen, all of us at the table here, won't be able to buy a gun, But the bad guys will know that there won't be any guns in anybody's house, so they'll go anywhere they want. It didn't work in Chicago. It didn't work in Philadelphia or Baltimore or Houston or all the other cities. We have a situation where we have in Chicago, the home of the President of the United States, some 4,000 shootings so far this year. Over the Memorial Day weekend, 90 people were killed. It just seems to me that Chicago has a very strict gun control law, and yet it's the wild, wild west. And it's also blacks killing blacks. And so the idea that we can
I knew that one was coming.
What?
Go ahead, finish.
True. Well, there aren't many white people in the inner city, in the south side and the west side of Chicago.
I know, and I guess all those kids on the south side and west side of Chicago got big cargo planes and flew these assault weapons over there to their neighborhood, huh?
No, they went out, either they stole them or they went out in the black market and bought them.
From whom?
That's how they got them.
Who put them on the black market?
Could
Were
be
those
black
other
brothers and
Negroes?
sisters. Pardon me?
I just don't like that you're trying to politicize this issue of gun control because you're not dealing with the real issue. Where are these kids getting these assault rifles from? Are they manufacturing them? Because I guarantee you can't find one African-American gun manufacturer in the world. So we're not making them, right? So where are we getting them from?
I have to jump in because of Chicago's gun laws. They're all illegal. You basically cannot own an assault weapon in Chicago. So it doesn't really matter. It's all black market. It's all.
Well, he just made the point that
whomever
he wanted to slide that in that was blacks killing blacks. Let's get off that narrative. These situations that we're talking about are set up by bigger powers. Blacks aren't manufacturing the guns. We're not bringing them into the community, but we are getting them. So why is that happening? Let's talk about that. Now that I'm talking, the bigger issue with guns as a whole is the fact that it's the mentality behind the people who have guns. When you grow up from the time you're 6 and you're watching Rambo blow everybody away, subconsciously that gets imprinted in your mind that when I get angry, I go get a gun and this is how I'm supposed to react. When you play deadly video games and there's blood and gore everywhere and it's every other movie, that's the central issue that's going on. Guns have been around for thousands of years now. People have used them responsibly and they will use them responsibly. But you can't feed a narrative to the public of violence and then expect for them to act different. You don't think that when they get upset and they play Grand Theft Auto a billion times, they're going to go talk to this guy and say, hey, I got an issue. I feel some type of way in my mind. No, he's going to go out and start shooting somebody because that's what he's seen. That's what he's seen over and over in movies. So this narrative that you're talking about, blacks killing black, has also been manufactured by Hollywood in all kind of movies because it sells tickets.
Well, Israel, let me ask you a question, if I might, about what you just said. And thank God it's a free country and you can say what you want to say.
Thank you, sir.
But what I'd like to know, Israel, where are the parents that are allowing the child to sit in front of the television and
How
play
much
deadly
time do
video
you
games?
got?
It's only a
Where are they?
60-minute show.
We only, yeah. That's
Where
a
are
whole
they?
different rabbit hole. I just don't.
No.
It's
not. It's part of
it's
the
dangerous
whole
to spread rhetoric
scenario.
that's not true.
Pardon me?
It's dangerous to spread rhetoric that's not true. If you look statistically, you can say there's white on white crime, Asian on Asian crime, Mexican on Mexican crime. It statistically shows that people murder people who are of the same race because they're living in the same neighborhoods because we're segregated. That's the truth. So if you want to talk about black on black crime, talk about Latino on Latino crime and white on white crime as well.
But you didn't answer my question.
What was your question?
The question was, you said that these kids are sitting in front of these television screens playing these games hours on end.
Yes.
And I said to you, where is the parental responsibility that says a different perspective?
There
You
obviously
don't
there
have
is
to-
a
If you get angry, you don't have to go get a gun and shoot somebody. Where is the parental responsibility?
where's the
whether it's black,
governmental
Latino, or white?
responsibility to keep these type of ideologies out of kids' minds? You got to understand the impressions that happens on people when they do something repetitively. Now, it was glorified back in the day. It was John Wayne on a horse shooting people and killing Indians. Then in the 90s is this whole gang banging era, and then there's these violent games like Doom. There's these violent games like Grand Theft Auto. There's these violent games like Modern Warfare, where these guys are sitting around murdering each other every day for fun. What do you think is going to happen when they have a situation?
You still haven't answered my question.
I answered your question.
What is the role of the parents in supervising and educating these children how to deal with frustration? If their parents aren't there, whether they're black, white, or Latino, it's making a difference. If the parents aren't involved in the child's life, and all they can think about is if they get angry at somebody, if they got to shoot somebody, then there's something missing out of the family structure, whether you're black, Latino, or white.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that. What I'm saying is it's the media, it's the movies, it's the music that's promoting this violence. You can't, you're not understanding what I'm saying. I agree.
We live in a free society, though. Where do you want to go next? Banning, the First Amendment that way? I mean, you really can't, it's not the government's job to, feed us anything, really. We need to be feeding ourselves and hopefully feeding our children whether it be media or food or whatever, the right things. That's just my take.
Israel, can I tell you a quick story?
Yes, sir.
I have a foundation called Songs and Stories for Soldiers.
Okay.
And we're trying to help soldiers with post-traumatic stress disorder.
Absolutely.
Brooke Army Hospital in San Antonio, Texas, my wife and I went there.
Okay.
And at that hospital, we were taken into a room that was probably 50 feet long, and on the outside walls, row after row, were television screens. On the inside area were lounge chairs. And in those chairs were veterans from Afghanistan and Iraq who were playing the kind of games that you were playing. But you know what, Israel? They were sleeping. Why? Because when they were in combat, they were told if it was quiet, you're in serious trouble. So these war veterans who were actually involved with killing people on a day-to-day basis found great solace and security by just going in there, turning on the games, not necessarily playing them, but because the noise helped them sleep. They had a rationale. These are the people who were involved in killing as a profession, military soldiers. And I'm saying to you is the idea that Hollywood is responsible or television or whatever is responsible. Responsibility starts with the individual first.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but we have to protect those who don't have enough sense to protect themselves. When you talk about these soldiers, you're absolutely right. They're trained. They know the difference between this is a video game, this is my job as a soldier, and this is a narrative that I've been fed since I was a little kid. This totally different.
As a human being in Chicago, Philadelphia, New York, whatever it is, did somebody, when that child was growing up, say to them to go out and shoot somebody because you're angry with them is wrong? Did they teach them right from wrong, or did they depend upon the government to try and teach what's right or wrong?
I'm sure
through
there's
legislation.
We can't live in a society where it says, as a parent, I can't tell my child, do as I say, not as I do. Because that's what you're saying right here. You're saying, don't do this, even though everything else says that. I'll use the example of sex, for example. It's everywhere. So even if you don't want to engage in it, you can't even watch a hamburger commercial without seeing it. So do you tell this person, even though you're in a candy store, don't eat candy? That's exactly what you're saying. You're blaming the person for being in the candy store.
It comes back to the concept of personal responsibility.
So what is the government's personal responsibility? Because what's happening in Chicago, and you're right about those statistics, is horrible. So what is the government's responsibility to try to quell some of that? So they just say, you know what, it's black on black crime. We just let them do whatever, because that's kind of where you're going with that.
No, what I'm saying is, as somebody who's written numerous commentaries on what's going on in the inner cities in Europe, it's happening in the inner cities in the United States. And
Absolutely.
There are now what they have in the UK and Germany and France and Switzerland and every place else, they have what are called no-go zones. That means that the police and the fire don't go in for fear of their life. And I'm saying that what's happened in Chicago is that the police, because of the violence in the community, are reluctant to go in because
Why is there violence in that
their life is
community?
at stake. And so what happens is we don't have enough police to go in and help the parents, because see, I believe that there are probably people in Chicago, in the South and West Side, who are agitators and are indoctrinating the young people to your solution is guns, and whether it's gangs or whether it's drugs or whatever it is. But I also believe there's a probably even larger number of people in Chicago, mothers and fathers, who say, you know, this has got to stop. But they don't know what to do, Israel. They
So
don't
that's
know
why-
what to do.
And
And
this
it
is what I'm
starts
saying.
with-
The guns, the violence, regards to what race it is, whatever city it is, that's correlated to poverty. You don't talk about how private Chicago is too, and how little opportunities and jobs there are there as well. So we got to talk about that issue. We're talking about the effect, but not the cause. You can't change the effect without changing the cause. It doesn't
me
work
kill-
like that. You can't just be like, yo, we're going to take all the guns away. Because even if you take away the guns, if the poverty mindset is there, they'll pick up sticks, they'll pick up stones. So we got to deal with the root issue that's going on, and we're not. We're just pointing
And in
blame.
Israel-
We're pointing blame.
53 years ago, Lyndon Johnson signed the document for the war on poverty.
Would
And
you
over
say
the
it was a
last
success
53
or not?
Wait a minute. In the last 53 years, Israel, our central government has spent $22 trillion on the war on poverty, more than all the other wars, including the current wars, ever fought in this country, have been fought on the war on poverty. $22 trillion. Where did the money go?
Great
How
question.
did the life improve?
Great question. Where did it go?
Well, there's some people who think it went to the bureaucrats and it went to the union leaders and it went to other people's pockets, but it never really got in meaningful numbers to the people inside the inner city who desperately needed the help. And for 50 years, because of the war on poverty, the black population in the United States has voted something like 90% Democratic. But what has the Democratic Party done for them?
About
Not
as much as the Republican Party?
No, not as much. No, the Republican Party has done even less than the Democratic Party. They gave up on the black community.
I'm just going to
And that-
tell you, this is just my personal opinion. A person, an African American male who has studied politics, I have a degree in politics.
Yep.
Neither party, in my opinion, has done anything of substantial that blacks should show allegiance to either one of them. That's my personal opinion. Not only that, a lot of other
wouldn't
people
disagree
should
with you.
start looking at that, because regardless of the fact, if you really look at it, Democrats and Republicans are at different points on the same end of the spectrum. All they do is argue about how to keep money between themselves. They're not helping the average person. So neither party, if you ask me.
Okay, and so how do we change the paradigm, going back to the subject matter that we're supposed to be talking
The
about? How do we
paradigm has
change-
to,
how do
that's
we-
what I'm trying to
how
tell
do-
you. This has
Let
to
me-
be,
Let me ask the question, Israel,
Okay.
before you answer. How do we change the paradigm so that the people who want to have a gun, for whatever reason, have a right to have one under the Second Amendment, be licensed by the state or whatever? But how do we also prevent those guns from getting into situations? I think you're absolutely right, Israel. The problem of why we have this crime and this violence is because the economic problems that are in the inner city, the incredibly high, 85%, Israel, and I'm sure you know, the people, young men from 15 to 25 are unemployed in the black area.
absolutely.
That's not acceptable. That's not acceptable. And so what they do is they turn to the gangs, and the gangs get them the guns, whether they're buying from black dealers or white dealers or Puerto Rican or Hispanics, doesn't make any difference. They get the guns to supply. And what our friend from who just spoke, talking about what his organization is trying to do, is to trying to protect the right under the Constitution for individuals to be able to keep and bear arms.
I'm
Because
not
you know what, Israel?
against.
If
I'm
we
not
don't have a
against that.
Second Amendment, guess what, Israel? We don't have a First Amendment either.
I'm not against people having guns. What I'm against is the deterioration of our culture as a whole that has led to a number of things. Not only the high number of murders with guns, but just the whole degradation of our society as a whole. That's what people aren't talking about. People want to talk about what made America great. What made America great was his morality, was his way of treating people, its common neighbor. That doesn't happen anymore because it gets caught up in bureaucracy, and gun control is another one of those issues. Because as a father, I want the right to protect myself, you know what I mean? But that also gives me access to do other stupid stuff as well. And that's caused because no one wants to stand up and say, you know what, this is wrong. No, we shouldn't do this. We shouldn't have all this violence in movies. I don't care. I get what you're saying. I'm a parent, and I try to restrict and put so many codes on my son's Xbox and on his YouTube page and whatever else, but he's going to see it, and it's everywhere. That's the bigger issue, is that it's everywhere. You can't go anywhere. You can't turn on the TV without watching a movie where some guy just shot 50 people. So that tells this kid it's no longer a human being to him. It's a video game that he's seen. It's a movie that he's seen. It's some weird stuff that he's seen, but no one wants to talk about that. We say, oh, it's okay for the...
Dave,
from the
jump
other
in
guys.
there.
Yeah, I don't want to dominate the conversation.
No. No,
I
Dave,
need
Dave,
to-
you had a point.
Challenge a little bit, frankly, because you're talking about these big picture issues, and yet when anything like this happens, when you have a mass shooting, or when you have 90 people shot over a weekend in Chicago and half of them turn up dead, nobody seems to want to blame these problems that you've been discussing for the last 15 or 20 minutes. They start pointing their finger at the Second Amendment. They want to disarm people like me, and I haven't committed any crime. Why should I be penalized? Why should the rights of honest, law-abiding citizens who happen to own guns, why should they be penalized when the problem is in the inner cities? That doesn't make sense.
Yet I need to hop in here. Chicago, which is just a cesspool of violence, especially in South Chicago, in the gang-ridden areas. That's just not so. Like in Denver, another big city with a population of over 3 million, and we have concealed and carry. And as long as you're not a felon or don't have mental problems or whatever, you're going to be able to get a concealed and carry permit, and a lot of people have them, and crime is down. And it's one of the most healthiest, I think it is the number one most healthy cities in the U.S. right now, the Denver area. So I don't know. Compared to Chicago, it's night and day, because they have almost complete gun control. There just is no citizen ownership of guns. I think you'll probably agree, Dan and Dave there.
Ross, I think you've got a point, and I have frequently written about the difference between the murder rate in the city of Seattle and in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and in Baltimore and in Washington, D.C. Now, Baltimore and Washington, D.C. and Seattle all have very similar populations. Mm-hmm. The only one of those three that has pretty widespread gun ownership and a lot of concealed carry is the city of Seattle. Everybody says that Washington is a blue state, but if you get outside the city of Seattle, it's pretty red out there. I just checked this morning. There are more than 550,000 people in the state of Washington who are legally licensed to carry concealed. We have an open carry movement out here. Seattle has fewer than 25 homicides a year. You look at Baltimore, what are they at, 200 or 300 right now? DC's up above 100, maybe almost 200. And in Chicago, we were just talking about, they've got over 500 people who have been killed this year, and they've got some of the still most restrictive gun laws in that city and in that state. It was the Second Amendment Foundation and the National Rifle Association that had to actually force the Illinois state legislature to adopt a concealed carry code about 4 years ago. And, we still haven't reached a point where the good citizens of Chicago have been able to arm themselves to fight back. But in Seattle and other places, Denver, Texas, wherever, where you've got an armed citizenry and the bad guys know that they could easily run into somebody, it's a lot more polite society.
Yes, that's very simple, and it's very logical, and you can tell, Baltimore, Washington, and Chicago. I mean, it's it's just a heyday for the criminals who do have guns, who get them at will at any time they want them.
Philadelphia, Milwaukee,
something
same
that-
situation.
Something that I want to bring up here. Everybody's been talking about the various guns. At one time, there was an assault weapons ban, I believe signed, Bill Clinton signed that. And
right, yeah.
under George W. Bush's administration, it got repealed. Why
It just,
hasn't...
it was allowed to expire.
It
Oh, okay,
expired.
okay.
Yeah.
So why don't, Israel brings up an interesting point with the way that the assault weapons, these guys play the video games and they go out
Yeah.
and get a gun and shoot up a movie theater or what have you. I am all in favor
That's a bogus
of
argument, though.
Okay.
James, that is really a bogus argument. Because
Okay. Yeah.
if you
Go ahead
look
and go ahead and
at-
explain it, because I'm trying to wrap my head around this because
well-
that's why I've got you guys on, because you guys are all educated. I'm just the guy sitting here hosting this show.
It takes quite a bit to wrap
Honestly.
around this.
Go ahead,
But,
Dave.
all right. If you look at the FBI uniform crime statistics over the last 5-10 years, rifles of any kind, including those nasty old semi-automatics that everybody wants banned, they are used in a minuscule number of homicides anywhere in the United States. There's a gun control group out here in Washington State right now that is trying to push for a ban on so-called assault rifles. The problem with that is, I think last year there were 6 people killed with rifles of any kind in this state. The year before that, nobody got killed with a rifle in this state. Across the country, you've got less than 400 people, usually less than 300 people, who've been killed with rifles. I've got some statistics
And
right
most
here.
of those are killed by drunks out hunting, basically.
Well,
But go ahead.
In 2014, out of 11,900 homicides, 248 of those people were killed with a rifle. Now, tell me, where's the problem there?
Israel.
Jim,
Was
Go-
unless you have extensive training and you actually have a reason for it, there's no reason for you to have an assault rifle. I mean, we can sit here and
Well,
say
but you don't
you have
need
a
a
second.
reason.
Let me finish, please.
You don't need a
Let me
reason
finish, please.
to have a so-called
Let me
assault
finish,
rifle.
please.
You have a right to have one of those guns.
Yeah, you have a right too, and I'm sure that the people whose family members have been murdered have a right to want them back too. See,
Well, sure
that's what I'm talking
They got-
about. We only think about ourselves. We're so selfish as a country now that we say, I have a right to have guns and these assault rifles that was built for military purposes because of a Second Amendment right without the thought of the human being that's on the other side of that. So you guys talk about violence in the inner city. When you guys are talking about it statistically, what you read, I'm telling you from experience, from being there, living it. That's 2 different things that we're talking about. So I'm not against people having guns. My question is, why are these guns here? If Chicago and New York have some of the toughest crimes, laws against guns, where are they coming from? So you don't talk about the people who bring them in the community. You're not asking where are they getting these guns from, but you're saying, I caught you with the gun and I'm going to take you to jail. Why? Because if you start tracing these weapons back, you'll start figuring out who the manufacturers of them are. If you find out who the manufacturers are, you'll figure out where they came from. If you figure out where they came from, you'll figure out how to stop them. But nobody cares. Now, if this was going on in a predominantly white community, there was 90 shots or 90 shootings in one weekend, there'd be an uproar about it and they'd be doing everything possible to stop it. But that's not the case. You named Baltimore, you named Chicago, you named Philadelphia, or whichever one versus Seattle. The first 3 I named also have high populations of blacks, high populations of unemployment. We're not talking about the central issue here. Guns have been around for a long time. I don't have a problem with that. From the Western days, from the frontier days, all the way back from their invention. That's not the issue. We have to do something different or we're going to keep getting the same results. That's what people aren't understanding. Until we change our mindset about it, then nothing else is going to happen. And it's all good and everybody's for gun rights and we should all have one till it's our loved one that's on the other side of one. Then it's
let me
like,
ask
yeah,
you
well,
this,
let's
let
do
me-
something about it now. Let's do something.
let
There's
me
no
ask you a
reason for the
question.
average citizen to have a reason to go get an assault rifle. For what?
Let me
Why?
ask you a que-
I
Mister,
live
let
in the
me ask you-
city. I can have a pistol, fine. Do I need an assault rifle? What am I going to Vietnam?
Dan, jump in there.
I have to ask Israel a question.
Yes, sir.
I agree with you that the problem of shooting in the inner city is driven by economics more than anything else.
Yes, sir.
The lack of opportunity for 7 generations of people dependent upon the government for their food and housing.
Yes, sir.
And at best, minimal. But let me remind you of 2 situations that happened recently. We had a shooting in Orlando at a nightclub where a terrorist killed 49 people,
Right.
okay? And the first message out of the black president's mouth was about eliminating guns. Yet, within the last 3 weeks, there was another terrorist in Virginia who tried to kill 2 people with a knife and almost decapitated 1 person. But there was no discussion about banning knives.
So
it's-
would you
it's-
rather somebody come at you with a knife or a gun? Which one do you like your odds with?
Well, I would tell you this, is that a lot of people, if you look at I would love to see the shot count in Chicago versus how many people actually got hit. There's a lot of people being killed and wounded in Chicago from stray bullets because the people can't shoot worth a damn. They're just pulling the trigger.
I agree with you on that 100%.
And let it fly.
They're all stormtroopers. They can't hit nothing.
Yeah, but
We're
what I'm saying- what I am
we're not
saying is
agreeing on the what. I agree with
me?
you guys on the what. What I'm discussing is the why. Why? Why are these things still happening in our country? Why are we having race issues still? Why are so many people being shot? Why are people doing these mass murders? Why?
And
If
the
we
answer
stop
is
to ask
you
a
answered
question
the
why,
question
we
early
might
on.
come up with a
You-
civilized answer.
You answered it early on. The bottom line is the reason why there is so much violence in the inner cities, in the large cities, is because the economic opportunities have been almost non-existent.
And why is that?
Because the Democratic Party 53 years ago decided to create a war on poverty and keep the black man in change of dependency on the government.
Was it only the
That's why.
Democrats?
Pardon me?
Was it only the Democrats?
Mostly.
Or was
Lyndon Johnson was the gentleman who was president at the time who brought on the war on poverty. And if you know anything about Lyndon Johnson, one of the reasons why he did what he did in the war on poverty is he wanted to keep, and he used the N-word, he wanted
No
to keep
surprise.
the N-word people under control. Give them just enough to keep them alive, but don't give them any hope or opportunity. You
So-
can go on the internet and you can easily search and look at the speech, look at the rhetoric from Lyndon Johnson. And
I've
we've got,
I've
and all
studied
these
it.
cities that we're talking about, all these cities as we were talking about are run by what party? And have run by this party for how long?
Again, back to what I was
All
saying.
run by the Democrats for
The
the last.
Democrats they've done just as much as the Republicans have.
No, because the Democrats have been in charge of the cities.
What have the Republicans
When's the
done
last time
directly?
there was a Republican mayor
what
in
has
Chicago?
what has either party done directly for African Americans?
Israel. When's the last time there was a Republican mayor in the city of Chicago or Philadelphia or Baltimore?
What? Okay.
A long time.
Again.
40,
Long
50
time
years.
ago.
Again, that's back to my statement. Democrats have done just as much as Republicans have done.
No,
Can
they
you
haven't. They've
name
done a lot
Can you name anything significant from either party that you would say, you know what, we're going to hang our hat on that?
I would say the significance is that the Democratic Party convinced the central government to spend $22 trillion on the inner city and on black people, and the black people didn't get very much.
Well,
You know,
that's because-
Dr. Martin Luther King, wait a minute, Dr. Martin Luther King in his I Have a Dream speech said that there was not enough investment. In fact, the checks were blank and they bounced. There was no money. In the
I recall
53
that.
years since he gave that speech, we spent $22 trillion on the inner city.
Yep.
Have we made a big difference? I don't think so.
Absolutely not. But my
And
point,
those cities have been controlled by the Democratic Party for 50 years.
My-
They're the ones that decide where the money goes.
My loyalty is not to a
Democrats
to
are
a
in
political
power.
party. My loyalty is
Sorry?
to what's right, human rights, all around. Not only
But if
for blacks,
you're asking
for
the question,
disadvantaged
and
whites,
you're
for
asking the right
disadvantaged
question,
Hispanics,
Mr.
for disadvantaged
What
people
happened?
in general.
You're asking the right question. What happened? What caused this problem?
But the Democrats aren't, I'm not some Democratic loyalist. Let me just say that. Again, I don't think that black people should participate in either one of the parties until they show that they directly want to help. Only time the parties try to come to the black community is when they need the vote to beat the other. As soon as they got our vote, then they're gone about their business. So far as I'm concerned, that could go out of the door. You're right about the issues that are happening, but there's been Republican presidents, there's been Democratic presidents, mayors, city officials, and so on and so forth. If something was supposed to be done about this, if it really was going to be done, it would be. Now, what's happening now is you have people who think differently. We have conversations like between us where we could talk openly and candidly about things and get somewhere.
I think I agree with you, but you have to understand that in our system of government, right or wrong, the Constitution, the states are in control and the cities are in control. And when the money comes into the state and the city, if the city of Chicago has been under Democratic power for 50 years, then the blacks in the inner city of Chicago should be asking the Democrats, not the Republicans, should be asking the Democrats, what the hell have you done with our money? What have you done for us? And they haven't done anything.
So that
Democrats
$22
who have
trillion
been in power-
was all Democratic money? No Republican money?
It's all government money that was put in place because of the war on poverty by the Democrat. All I'm saying is the people in Chicago and Philadelphia and Baltimore and Milwaukee and Houston and other cities around the country, St. Louis, should be asking, the inner city people should be asking to the 15 largest cities, the largest population of blacks and Democratic leadership for almost 50 years, what the hell did you do with my money? What did you do for me? If they're in power, Israel, the Republicans can't do anything if the Democrats control the city and control the city government. And that's what's happening. And what's going on today, for the first time in many, many years in the Republican Party, a person who's running for president has reached out to the blacks in the inner city and said, I want to help you.
And who would that be?
Mr. Trump.
Are you serious?
Donald J. Trump.
He wants to help us about as much as the Grand
How
Wizard
do you-
wants to
wait
have
a minute,
lunch
wait a
with me.
minute. Now you're showing your prejudice and your bigotry.
No, are you serious? Donald
Yes, I am
Trump.
serious.
I'll tell you this. The Republican Party's problem is that they're out of touch with the black community. You go get someone who like Ben Carson, who black people don't identify with in the first place. See, if the Republican Party really wanted to help, maybe they might start going and getting some of these guys from the Democratic Party and asking. I'll be the first to tell you. Again, I'm for the advancement of black people unapologetically. We need more in this country, not only these poor whites, poor Mexicans, everybody, because there's enough money to go around. I'm volunteering my services personally. If you know anybody in the Republican Party who wants to do something for the black community, they have my full participation.
I have one more question for you because I see the clock and it's 48 minutes after the hour.
Donald Trump.
Israel,
Wow.
do you think that the interest of black people will be fairly represented with a crook in the White House?
My personal opinion is that they're all crooks.
No. I asked you.
That's my personal opinion. They're all crooks.
Oh.
And they're all playing us. I think that
I
the
just
best.
don't see how
I-
things
I-
are going to be
if-
improved with.
We're
you know,
off the
what is
topic of gun
essentially will be
control.
The same administration.
We're
as
off the topic
Obama
of gun control, but
administration
I'll
with
say
Hillary
this.
Clinton.
I'll say this and I'll leave the topic alone of race. I said to James over here that white America gets its information about black Americans from white America. That's part of the problem. If you're watching Fox News to find out what's going on in the ghetto, you're already lost. That's problem number one. If black America, or if white America really want to help black America, they would get the greatest minds that they could find, from education to health to whatever, and they would start a national board of people who actually know what's going on in the community. See, there's no black government to go and talk to the white government. That doesn't exist. So how can white America, if they want to help, actually do what blacks are asking? How do they even know? You can't know if you assume, but if you start a board, elected officials, and talk about the issues and really deal with them in a logical manner, then we can get something done. But that hasn't happened. Where's our delegates at? Ah, see, now we're talking about something. Maybe is, I mean, I know it's crazy to think about a board of African Americans actually making choices for our community, but you know, we have been able to read for quite some time now, and I'm sure we could do a good job of it.
So, but Israel, if I don't disagree with what you're saying, but if the Democrats have had control of your cities for 50 years,
Why are you trying to make it a party
why aren't
issue?
you asking them,
That's
why didn't they
that's
create the
that's the
board?
same problem that we've been having, because when Republican candidates come in, they only want to talk about the Democrats. Who cares about the Democrats? What are you going to do? Why should we vote for you? Don't be anti-Democrat, be pro-Republican. That's what I want to hear. I can go in the newspaper and tell you why I don't want to vote for that guy. I'm telling people all the
Well, I
time, why are
would
you
say
so loyal to the Democratic Party?
The Republicans will offer economic,
How?
health rather than stagnation.
How?
Which means jobs, which you can pull yourself out of the doldrums that you might be in the inner cities. It's kind of how much do you want to make this happen yourself, and
How?
you're putting the duty of this needs to be on government. That ain't the government's business. The government
Why?
needs to stay out
Why
of that.
isn't
like
it?
they
Was
stay
it the
out of
government's
my-
business to
my gun
systematically
closet.
create rules and laws against blacks? That
Well,
happened, so
but
why wouldn't they
you
do it
can't
to undo
say
it,
that.
right?
Those laws have been gone for nearly 50 years. The Jim Crow laws and longer.
Israel,
So you
Israel,
can't blame
do you
it
know
on those laws anymore.
Israel, do you know who passed those laws?
Democrats.
Democrats.
And what did the
Republicans.
So
Democrats.
when Republicans were in the office, what did they do to try to overturn that? Or what have they tried to do to realistically court the black community?
You
Trump
realize-
is talking to the
Right.
black community now
Israel,
because he wants to be Hillary.
Do you believe that do you understand that the Civil Rights Act of 63 and 64 would not have been passed because the Democrats in the House and the Senate were opposed to it? It was the Republicans who put a coalition together,
Part of the
that
problem,
passed the legislation that made it possible.
back to what I'm saying, part of the problem that black America is having is each party wants to put it off on the other party. It's this party doing that. It's this party doing that. I'm saying whoever's going to take responsibility. Again, I don't care if you're libertarian. I don't care if you're green. I don't care if you're Republican. I don't care if you're Democrat. Sean Gates will personally offer his service and be a liaison to the black community if you show real support. So if Trump is serious, you send him an email, you tell him to call Sean Gates, and I'll be his biggest fan. If he lays out an actual plan that says this is what we're going to do, otherwise it's rhetoric. We've heard it before. If the Civil Rights Act was so swell, why are we still dealing with the things that we do now? At the turn of the century, right after the Civil War.
What do you want to see in that plan?
Say what?
What do you want to see in that plan?
I want to see a lot in that plan. I want to see.
Well, you can't give us just a pie in the sky.
going to.
We need something different. We need something. What do you want? Jobs?
Okay,
You want
now
more
you're seeing my
money?
point.
What?
How
I don't
can
know.
you know if you don't even have a board to discuss those things? There's lots of things we want. We want education. We want to be a part of the fabric of our country. We want to not be disadvantaged. Let's just start there. Can we get some help going to school, some assistance rebuilding our neighborhoods? Can we change the law so that we're not discriminated against when we go to court, so that when we go get a loan, we're not having a higher interest rate? Those are good things. I mean, I want to send my kids to school too. Now, there's an article I just read about Countryside and Bank of America. There was fined a few hundred of millions of dollars for discriminating against Hispanics and blacks when they were filling out loan applications.
Yeah, so?
That's why I said,
Yeah, so.
that's why I said we need the brightest minds of the African American community to come together with the white community as well to have solution-based problems. Not this every 4 years when I want your vote, I'm gonna blow a bunch of smoke and everything's gonna be peaches and cream. I don't care whether you're black, I don't care if you're white, I don't care if you're Mexican, I don't care whether you're Barack Obama and you're a black man like I am. I don't care if you're not talking about something of substance.
Do you think, Israel, what is the rationale that you can give me as a black man of why 90 to 95% of the black community will vote for Hillary. Why?
Because historically, now you
Whoops, be careful, be careful.
no, listen, because historically that's what we've done. Now, the black community is no different than the white community or Mexican community because most people are not informed. Matter of fact, some white people who are Republicans might actually vote Democrat if they open their mind. Now, it's in everybody's best interest to not toe this party line. But because we do that, we go along with stuff that's total BS just because the party says so. And that's part of the rhetoric of America, and that's what makes us great in the same sense, because no matter how idiotic it is, we can vote for it and we can wave our flag at it and it'll all be great.
But
I love you guys.
Why do you think,
I love
why
you
do you
guys.
think, Israel, that the black community for almost 50 years has voted overwhelmingly for?
Because Republicans are
Wait a
seen
minute,
as
let me finish my
racist.
question. Overwhelmingly for Democrats, and yet they've, in your own admission, you've made very little progress.
Yeah, because black community views Republicans as rich, older white guys who are not in their best interest. Until
And even though the Democrats haven't produced in their best interest, you're voting for the lesser of the two evils?
yeah, because Democrats aren't getting on knowing that social services are a big part of our economy. Democrats aren't getting on there saying, we're going to cut these social services, we're going to cut food stamps, we're going to cut welfare, knowing that statistically there's more whites on social services than there are minorities put together.
Because there are more white people. What's the
I
big
know, but
relation
that's
there?
what I'm saying. The grand old party needs to change its image. It's not viewed as the party of the people who understand. See, younger people want more socialism. That's just what it is. That's how they are. They feel entitled to certain things. I'm not saying it is right or wrong. That's just what it is. You asked me a question, I'm answering it. When they think of Republicans, they think of Rush Limbaugh. They think of these type of guys who are your Bill O'Reillys, who are so out of touch with the black community that they say things that are asinine and they don't even know that they're racist. So again, my suggestion to you would be to find some young, urban African-American males like me who do care to build a bridge between the community and reinvent the grand old party.
What city do you live in, Israel?
Wichita, Kansas, but I'll be wherever change is needed.
No. You live in, so have you reached out to try and do this in Wichita, Kansas?
I've told every candidate, I don't pull a party line. If you want my
I didn't
services,
ask you that.
if you want to help, yes, I've registered people to get voted from whether they're Democrat or Republican. I've worked on both parties. I've registered to get people to vote regardless to what their party was, because if you participate, you participate. Again, I'm not going to play party politics. I don't care what party you are. If a Republican party, if Trump gets on TV tomorrow and says, look, black people, I got a 10-point plan that I'm going to land to help you guys, I'm with Trump until he shows me he can't do it. But just going to court to vote at the last moment, that's not going to do nothing for me.
Israel, my question was where you lived in Wichita, Kansas.
Yes, sir.
And what
Republican
I'm asking
Wichita, Kansas.
I'm asking
Republican
you,
Wichita,
Kansas, how much of what the rhetoric you just gave us for the last hour about this reaching out to the community and creating this board, how much of that have you facilitated in Wichita, Kansas?
Again, I've helped get people registered to vote. Both parties. I'm speaking on shows like this. I've gotten out in the community to hand out flyers. I talk about it in my music. I talk about it on the show. I'm not just one of these people who's going to talk and say, you should do this, you should do that. I just offer my services to you. I've offered my services to other Republican candidates. But you know what? They're in Wichita, Kansas, and this urban black guy doesn't fit their narrative for the Republican Party. I'd run the Republican Party in the Democratic neighborhood and win.
I hate to break this up, but we are about out of time.
I love you guys.
I want to thank Dave Workman for being with us. Dave, I appreciate you being here. Mention the website of where we can get more information from you.
Okay, it's at saf.org. Stands for the Second Amendment Foundation, or ccrkba.org. And we'll tell you all about the Second Amendment and your firearms rights.
And Ross, thanks for being with us once again. It's been fun.
Yep, rosslong.info. Check it out. I wanted to answer your question. What's happened in the last 50 years there, Dan? Well, it's pretty much like Johnson wanted it. He wanted people to be held down where they were only being lifted up for the last 99 years. And here comes this war on poverty. They throw all this money into it. And are things better? Well, no. But
Right.
they're static. And people like that, unfortunately.
And Dan, as we go, give us the website, my friend. Now we can listen to the radio show.
Yeah, the book website is danperkins.guru. The Foundation for Soldiers is songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. And the radio show is W4CY Radio on Tuesday evenings at 8 o'clock Eastern.
In
And
Israel.
thank you, Jim.
Hey guys, I appreciate you guys coming on. I enjoyed the conversation. I think that's what needs to happen. Is there needs to be a conversation so we can actually bring about change. So yeah, thanks for having me. That's it, guys.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. And next month we will be live from Salina. Thanks to the crew, and thanks to Access TV. Thanks to Sean Gates, and thanks to everybody on Skype. Have a good night.
Peace.